Call this meeting to order. Sorry about the delay. We're waiting for our audio-visual gurus in the back. Everybody hear me okay? Not okay? Different facility. How about that? Oh, I can hear myself. That's creepy. All right, welcome everybody. We do have a new venue today. We were having a presentation from the folks from Harcourt later today, so we thought we'd shake it up and offer some more seating. Today is Tuesday, October 4th, and let the record show that all three commissioners are present. We have some advisory committee meetings coming up. The next BIAC meeting, the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Meeting, is Thursday, November 10th at 5 p.m. at the General Aviation Conference Center at the airport. The next Technical Airport Advisory Committee meeting is also Thursday, November 10th. That's at 9:30 at the GA conference room at the airport. And then our next Marina Advisory Group meeting is Tuesday, October 11th at 5:30 p.m. And that's this time is going to be in Blaine at the Blaine Boating Center, but should be easy to find. So if you're looking for that Marina Advisory Group meeting, the next one, October 11th, it's in Blaine. Normally they're held here in Bellingham. All right, so let's start with a little public comment period. Is anybody here for public comment? Do we have a sheet?
Commissioner, we don't have anyone signed up for public comment.
I see a few faces here. Anybody want to say anything now? Okay, all right, we'll move into our consent agenda. And Diane, please.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
All right, any easy, simple discussion about these items? Mr. Briscoe.
Not much of a discussion. I'd just like to point out on the dock box replacement, there was a great variance in the bid. So I asked staff about that to make sure that we were getting what we needed, and they pointed out we were when we went over things.
All right, right.
And commissioners, we're sharing mics, so we may have to move them around a little bit.
Oh, yes. This will slow us down. Wait, you turned that up. Now that's better. Okay. Mr. Robbins.
I had one question, and I'm not sure how you want to, how the chair wants to handle this, but item H, it says there's no fiscal impact, and we talked about that. Do we want to pull that off the agenda, or do we want to address it now and talk about it? There's a discussion we need on
Sure.
it, I think.
Shirley, would you be able to address that, the lease with Bellingham Hilton International? Mr. Shipman's? Okay. Why don't we go ahead and take item H off our consent agenda, and so we'll put that into our regular open meeting, and then so we will change this to items A through J with the removal of H, unless Commissioner Briscoe doesn't want to do that.
Very good with that.
So all in favor of items A through J, with the exception of H, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and Diane, is there a resolution to read for that we could read for that?
Commission motion to approve a modification of the airport hotel lease agreement between the Port of Bellingham and Bellingham HI LLC.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, commissioners. First, staff apologizes for the oversight of not including this in the action memo. Thank you for your patience with that. What's happening here basically is the developer is now estimating to have substantial completion and receive their occupancy permit from the county in mid-December. Before it would have been the end of September. And so the way the rent structure is called out in the lease, the rents begin in the first day of the first month after receiving occupancy permits from the county. So the rent amount is $42,665. That would be rents for October, November, and December.
It's a total of $42,000
That's correct.
for the 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was part of the record.
Rightfully so. So thank you, Commissioner Robbins.
It's the only question I have.
No? Okay. Any questions on this? All right, since we did move this to an action item, and so we have a motion on the floor, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Steve. So we have Tamara, who's going to give us our 2017 strategic budget updates. It's not available via print yet, but I'm sure it'll be out in a couple of weeks and then available to the public shortly thereafter. So, update today. While she's doing that also, if anybody needs Wi-Fi, anybody need Wi-Fi? I've got a code. Nobody?
Secret
You need
code?
Wi-Fi? All right. It's a secret code, yeah. I can't read it on.
Do you have a decoder ring to
Kidding.
get it, or what?
Sam, are you okay? You got it.
All right. Okay, yes, Tamara, let's hear it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tamara Sobczak, Director of Finance. Today is our first look at the 2017 budget, so I'll just be hitting the highlights today and answering any questions that you may have at this point. By mid next week, I'll be giving the Commission a copy of the capital budget, the 5-year plan, a list of unfunded projects, which we'll go through in just a few minutes, and the revenue and expense detail. Then in 2 weeks, we'll come back and discuss the draft budget to get the Commission's comments, feedbacks, any changes that you're requesting. So our first challenge are the operating revenues. And Rob, you wanted to speak to this one?
So we just wanted to point out some of the shortfalls that we've seen in the last 6 months that weren't necessarily planned. The first being the loss, the aviation continues to decrease. Since 2013, we've seen that trend. The trend is slowing down. I think we're averaging about $1 million a year down compared to where we were in 2013. So that's $1 million of revenue we don't have. The marine terminals lost about $400,000 due to the Horizon vessel being scrapped. And then the loss of Storkcraft, which was in our waterfront acquisition division, was about $1 million a year. So you can see that all total, we're at about $2.3 million there of revenue that we had last year that we don't have this year. And that pushed a lot of projects that we thought we were going to get to in 2017 below the cash positive line. So just kind of the basis for how staff developed the capital budget. We prepared a list of all the needs and wants of the port, and then we prioritized those as to what staff felt was important. And then we drew a line where we had enough money to make that work. The Commission obviously has the final say on the budget, and you're free to add items that are below the line and not funded right now. But we would encourage you to take items off the list for every one that you add so that we don't go negative. Just a little recap there on the revenue shortfall.
On the BWAS, I think in an update, we had somebody nibbling around that warehouse.
We've had 2 people nibbling around the warehouse. Neither one have bit yet, but we continue to market it, and we continue to talk to one of those 2, and we're confident we'll get it rented. It just may not be as quick as we wanted to.
Thanks, Rob. So with that, with the expense side, we did not add any additional costs. We just kept to standard operations, which is about 2% increase over 2016. And then we have environmental cleanup of about $9.3 million, offset by about $7.5 million in insurance, grants, and PLP payments, with a net cost to the port of $1.8 in 2017. A pretty big piece of the budget puzzle are the tax revenues. In 2016, we levied about $7 million, and that calculated to a rate of 0.2764 per thousand in value. And we made some assumptions for 2017. We assumed that tax base would remain flat. We would still just ask for $7 million. We would accept the tax on any new construction. We assume that assessed value will continue to increase as it has over the past few years. As a result of that, the rate will remain flat or even more likely decrease.
Tamara, did you look at if the rate remains the same, but the value goes up, what the difference would be between? So it stays at 27 or 0.2764.
Yep, so what we can do is increase that tax base. We don't ask for a rate, we ask for a dollar figure. Mm-hmm. So we can increase that dollar figure by 1%, and that would get our rate closer to 2016, I believe.
Okay.
And that's obviously a commission decision, and we can we can do that.
Okay.
As a reminder, what tax take pays for, GO debt payments straight off the top. We have to pay our debt first. We pay for the environmental program costs. We pay for the public priorities program costs and those public capital projects. And then anything over $5 million goes to the waterfront district. Another piece of the puzzle are the debt payments. Obviously, we have to pay those first. We have about $7 million in debt payments to pay in 2017. That includes both GO and revenue bonds. We have a couple of maturities coming up, one in 2017, one in 2019. So you see those payments decreasing in 18 and again in 20.
So Commission, I think here's a great opportunity when you're looking at the scheduled debt payments for kind of recouping some of those revenues. Instead of getting revenue, we'll just have less in debt payments in 3 years. They gradually decrease as we pay down some of the principal on this debt. And you can see that in 2020, just 3 years from now, we are about $2.7 or $2.8 million less in debt payment than we have this year. So we're at the peak of our debt payments right now, and it should only get better from here on out as long as we don't issue new bonds.
And we don't have any bonds anticipated for 2017. Now, the largest piece of the budget puzzle are the capital projects. We have over $22 million in projects scheduled for 2017. The largest projects included are the wooden pier replacement of the shipyard pier, $10 million through 2019. This is not just 2017. And then over that period of time, we have $4 million slated for MACA funding. We also have eco-district utilities at the waterfront district. These bold line items show projects that are brand new in 2017. We haven't identified them before in our 5-year plan. So that's $1 million to that one.
And the eco-district utilities would be the district heating?
Correct.
Okay.
When you say shipyard pier, that's Pulia's, the dock there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have $750,000 slated for franchise utilities at the waterfront district.
So that's the installation of gas and electric.
We have a crane at the C Street terminal for $700,000. That has been in our 5-year plan. We're planning to re-roof Warehouse 2 at the shipping terminal for over $600,000. FMIP building number 1 fire suppression was added for $490,000. And then finally, the replacement of the parking lot equipment at BLI for $441,000. There's a variety of projects on the list. They just aren't to this magnitude. So putting all the pieces together, this is what the cash flow looks like for 2017. We're expected to begin the year with over $24 million. Sources of cash, this is all in. Revenues, PFCs at the airport, taxes, grants, etc. $46.5 million. Then we're expecting to spend over $58 million. And again, this is all in. Expenses, capital, debt, environmental cleanup. Leaving us with an ending cash of $12 million at the end of next year. Don't forget, we need to reserve some of that. We have debt reserve, which is legally required. We have 3 months of operating expenses that we reserve, and then $1 million in an emergency fund. That leaves us with available cash at year-end in 2017 of $2.5 million. So what's not included in this budget? We have just a variety of unfunded projects. They were identified, but we just don't have a funding source for them. So we could either find a funding source or horse trade the current capital. $1 million for the airport trail, $1 million for the Blaine Marine Drive. We have over $1 million for the Fairhaven Quiet Zone, $250,000 for dredging the Squalicum Waterway, $750,000 for Blaine Sawtooth Phase 3. Phase 2 is in the 2017 budget. We have $2.8 million for Phase 2 construction of the C Street terminal. We have 3.7 million for Blaine bulkhead repairs, and that project needs to coordinate with the environmental cleanup. We have over $200,000 for parking upgrades at gates 1 and 2 in Blaine. We have $2.8 million for structural upgrades at the rail span and stub pier. And then finally, we have visitor moorage at the waterfront district for almost $1 million.
And Tamara, just to be clear, this is a continuation of the list that are unfunded.
This is, right, these last two slides are unfunded. So that's our budget in a nutshell. Like I said, next week we'll have a draft budget to the commissioners for review. Numbers only, the narrative won't be quite ready. I'm actually hoping to get that to the commission by the end of this week so that you have more time to review it. Oops. And then in 2 weeks we'll come back and get an update and get a direction from the commission. By October 24th, we'll have it available on the website for the public, and we will have the narrative available at the time as well. That's what we heard last year from the public. They wanted the narrative. November 1st, we'll come back and have a public hearing, and then ask the commission to approve the final budget on November 15th so that we can meet the legal deadline of the first Monday in December to file that with the county. So I'd love to answer any questions that you may have or comments.
Tamara, in the existing budget, do you anticipate renting the Startcraft building out at all in this budget?
I believe we added a small portion, just because we know we'll do something, but not to the magnitude of Startcraft until we actually get a lease.
So that's not in the budget for the most part?
Correct.
Same with anything, any industrial users at our shipping terminal, that's not in the budget at all?
No, we don't put any speculative revenue in the budget, so it's got to be pretty concrete and pretty solid lead if we're going to put it in there, if it's not already an existing lease.
That's great. And I also like the policy that if we do want to add something to it, we have to take something off. I think that's good policy.
Could you, Tamara, could you flip back in the slides to Blaine?
Unfunded?
Mm-hmm. And were there two slides with Blaine unfunded?
There were
Or
2
I-
slides of unfunded.
So we got the Marine Drive.
Which that's the bulkhead there, that between the production area and the pier.
Mm-hmm. And then the Sawtooth, and then there's another one.
Hey, Adam, do you mind giving us a quick recap of Phase 2 versus Phase 3 in the Sawtooth?
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Yeah, you can go
Yeah.
there, that's fine.
It isn't streaming, somebody just texted
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yeah. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Adam Fulton, Director of Facilities. There are 2 current phases to the Blaine Sawtooth. The first we just performed, and that was in our superstructure, getting that to a functional level that is safe and usable for most of the pier. The second phase, which will be next year, actually goes into the water, replaces a bunch of piles, and upgrades that pier or restores it more to its current or original condition, clear out to what we called Area B, which Area A being the main portion of the pier, Area B being the next Sawtooth bite out to the south, and then Area C being the remainder of the pier. So this gets us very functional all the way through Areas A and B from the ground up. Does that help, Director?
So there's 750 for Phase 3, and what was the Phase 2 portion again?
Phase 2 is very much in the same area as Phase 1, but it actually increases our structural capability throughout the entire area by replacing piles. We couldn't replace the piles in Phase 1 because we don't have the in-water work permits. We will have those for Phase 2. Phase 3 then is the remainder to the south.
And both of these are unfunded right now.
Phases 1 and 2 are funded. Phase 1 is actually carried out, done. Phase 2 is funded 2017, and then Phase 3 is what you're seeing here as unfunded.
So there's enough in the budget that we're looking at to get all the way through Phase 2?
Correct.
Correct.
You're
Okay,
correct.
so it's just the rest of the sawtooth that we're, okay.
So Commissioners, there's a couple of different ways we can address this. Obviously, there's maybe some reprioritization here, but what I would encourage us to do, since money is getting tighter than it's historically been at the port, I'd like to do this as more of an quarterly update where we're looking at the projects we know we're not going to get to for whatever reason. Maybe we didn't get a permit. Maybe the priorities have changed. Things come up. Maybe we just don't have enough staff time. Maybe our revenues have increased. And if we analyze this on a quarterly basis and we go to this unfunded list, we may have an opportunity to pick a couple items off that as we progress through the year. So it's kind of a work in progress as we go through the year for this unfunded list.
So I'd like Dan and Bobby to hear this from me today.
I definitely want us to see if we can't continue focusing on Blaine, since we've been neglecting it for a long time. So that, can you explain real quick again, what's the phase 3 gonna do? Thanks, Adam.
Actually, the scope of Phase 3 is not fully decided. The Commissioner would recall maybe 3 months ago, we had a meeting in Blaine with fishermen and the commissioners themselves and talked about the various possibilities for that third phase. We put an estimate together on what could be the likely or maybe most drastic scenario to that. We've met with Commissioner Briscoe on site several times to talk about squaring off the easterly face of that pier, and then doing something with the end portion to make it more functional and usable. Yeah. Does that help, Commissioner?
Yeah, okay, yep, that refreshed me. And Shirley, on this particular topic, how many seafood companies do we have up there right now? Is it 4? 3, and one wants to expand. 2 want to expand. Well, that's even better news. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay.
And then there was a slide with the BST warehouse roof, that's 600.
But just really quick, Commissioner, I don't think there's anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam or Shirley, but I don't think there's anything about that expansion that this phase 3 funding would preclude from happening. So I think the expansion can go regardless of what we do for capital.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is that if, I don't want to hinder, obviously they're going to be on the upland or are in the upland, right? But I don't want to hinder any growth potential, because if they're seeing growth potential to buy more seafood there, then, access to across the piers, it's pretty critical, but we might seriously look at, are we not supporting it well enough to make sure that they, can grow, or we can even attract more. So anyway, the shipping terminal warehouse is $602,000 roof.
Correct.
And Adam, we've got an ELSA grant for stormwater. Is that in 2017 that we're going to spend that?
Actually, we're going to, that grant matures and expires actually in June of 2017. We'll have spent that actually this year. Okay. But there is a potential, I don't recall the budget, if there's a second phase that we're doing in the first quarter of next year, I just don't recall.
Okay, and that's sort of what I'm getting to, is how much are we going to spend on stormwater at the shipping terminal in the next year? I guess it's already committed money.
Yeah, I want to say, I'm sorry, Commissioner, to be guessing, but I want to say it's between $2.5 and $3 million that we're investing into the shipping terminal to do not only the stormwater, but to put utilities underground and prepping that area for future use.
And that number, even though it's a kind of a rough guess right now, not including the stub pier work?
That's correct. The work we've done on the stub pier, the rail span is what you're talking about?
No, we got the short one and then the rail span.
Yeah, there's no work being done to the stub pier at this point.
Okay, I thought I read that wrong. But the rail span is still, we're thinking about it.
So with the rail span, we did a 30% design, understand its condition, and now understand what it'll take to go forward. We have not as yet applied for permits to do any further work to it or anticipating a project to that pier.
Okay. Is it in the way right now? If you're bringing in, I see a 500-foot barge, it's not a problem?
No.
I mean, to the stub pier. If you're bringing a long barge.
Yeah, no, nothing in that facility is in the way if you take it end.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anything further, Rob?
How do we decide the priorities of the unfunded projects? Is that up on our one-on-ones with the executive director?
I
Or
think it's an arm wrestling match between the three of us.
I think the three of you need to discuss it in an open public meeting and come to some conclusions, yeah.
So my question is, when does that happen?
Well, I think we're going to get you the numbers here. I don't remember what the date is, but it's next week.
Next week.
So once you have those numbers, you'll have something very concrete in front of you, and then at the next commission meeting, we can set aside some time to discuss those priorities.
Let's look at that.
Very good.
Just so you understand where staff is coming from, we first prioritized fire, life, and safety, and then after that, it became, okay, well, how bad is it? And that was kind of our two criteria. And if we thought it could wait, especially if we thought there's some sort of emergency type repair we can do, which is what we're doing out at the Sawtooth, then it became a lot less of a priority.
And Tamara, when do you have to get the info into the county? When that's in December?
December, first Monday in December.
First Monday in December is the 5th of December, so we'll have, unless we schedule a special meeting, we'll have the 18th of this month, and then the 1st and the 15th of November.
That's very typical, yep.
Okay. Anything further from you?
On the Blaine Marine Drive, where's the city at on that? They
City
got
doesn't have
funds or-
funding for it either. That's
Okay.
one of the reasons we pushed it out is, I mean, obviously, we don't have the funding, but since they didn't, it dropped a little lower on the priority. And we'll continue to work with the city to try and get that in the future.
Okay, and on the dredging of the Squalicum Waterway, wasn't some of that done already? Or?
No, well, they removed, Squalicum Waterway, they removed a hump that was kind of in the way. The Puget Sound Pilots Association thought there was they didn't like one little hump that was out there. That got removed, but there's a lot more dredging needs to occur there. And cold storage is looking for federal monies to do that along with state money. And we're assisting in that effort.
And that's the 250 is the port's assist?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, besides just staff helping?
Yeah, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think Bellingham Cold Storage is going to put up 250, we're going to put up 250, and we're going to try to get federal and state funds to do the rest.
That's it?
That's it.
You good? You're all good? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you'll have those documents next week, and then we can, if you have questions on them, talk to Tamara and myself.
All right, thank you so much. That's all we had for our 5 o'clock hour, 4 o'clock hour, and I thought we were gonna have an awesome presentation of a video that was debuted at Sea Feast. We don't have that, so in lieu of that, we will recess until 5:30. We'll have public comment at 5:30, and we will see you then. Welcome back, everybody. We are back at our 5:30. We're going to reconvene our public meeting, and we do have a few people signed up on our public comment sheets. If you haven't signed up, that's all right. Feel free to come on up to the mic and see what you'd like to say. It's a little bit different format tonight, so we have a microphone up here. It's facing back there towards the dome, and we'd ask that you come and use that microphone just in front of the screen, please. And we'll start with Alice Clark, followed by Bob Sander, and then Ken Lingblom. And if you haven't signed up, feel free to just follow up after Mr. Lingblom.
I brought my paper because I might forget some things, so forgive me if I refer to my notes.
Hi, Alice.
Hello. My name is Alice Clark, and I'm the current Executive Director of the Downtown Bellingham Partnership. So I'm representing myself, but also Downtown Bellingham. First, I want to appreciate that you guys are actually tackling these questions because they're really important, and I appreciate that you're taking the time to do the whole process. And I wanted to come and support Harcourt's plan for the hotel that they wanted to build in the board mill building. And I hope that I can sway you a little bit. I don't know if I can, but I hope that you will reconsider this. I wanted to tell a couple points. One is that I think that from everything that I've read in all the city plannings, there's been an overwhelming support for a hotel downtown, and there's a big need for that in just walking about and talking to businesses and talking to visitors. And I know it doesn't offer the high-paying, high-tech jobs that we all envision will happen right off the bat, but I think it's a really great beginning for a couple different reasons. One is that it'll draw people to the waterfront, which is going to itself create the energy and excitement that we really need downtown right now. And that excitement will translate into people being interested in Bellingham, being interested in our community, and potentially investing in bringing those jobs that we're talking about in the near future. Also, the people that are coming and going to this convention center, hotel center, will go downtown and spend money in the businesses that exist right now, which are actually the current economic driver of downtown, and they really would appreciate that infusement. So I guess it's sort of trickle-up economics instead of trickle-down, but I think that that energy and excitement would go a long way at this point in time. So in the future, it's all going to be one. It's separated now by a fence, but in the future, it'll be all one downtown area, and I think this is a really great way to start that synergy. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Mr. Bob Sander, and then Ken Lingblom.
Good evening. Thank you, Port Commissioners, for letting me testify here. I'll just, in the spirit of moving through this quickly, I'll just read my remarks to you. I'm Bob Sandoz. I reside at 614 11th Street here in Fairhaven. I recently moved to the Bellingham area, and I hold my real estate license, which I'm a commercial broker with Windermere Whatcom. In testifying today, I want to testify in favor of the vision plan that Harcourt Development has submitted. I have recently moved here, and I have roughly a 36-year real estate career, 13 of which those years were with the Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Group, and 11 of those were with Cornerstone Columbia Development Company. With Cornerstone, I had the privilege to be involved with various redevelopment projects, including a 6-block project in downtown Seattle, a $100 million redevelopment of downtown Tacoma, and a waterfront project in Portland, Oregon. In each of those redevelopments, we dealt with functionally obsolete structures and land that was repurposed, changing the landscape of specific parcels, but more importantly, changing the accessibility, perception, and function of the overall urban environment. In many cities across the United States, we find stunning examples of reclaiming of formerly industrial contaminated waterfront sites. which go through a remarkable renaissance into vibrant mixed-use redevelopments. This transformation functions as a lightning rod to attract new business, employment, and economic growth while opening public access to once derelict waterfront. As a dynamic mixed-use development, residents of Bellingham will now have a place to live, work, and play. The vision plan submitted by Harcourt positions Bellingham's waterfront district redevelopment as a major focal point for the city of Bellingham in attracting new quality businesses and employment, which are currently missing. I love Bellingham, by the way. I've lived all through the Puget Sound region over the past 35 years, and I've never been in a community that is more friendly to parks and recreation and accessible to the water. This is a jewel here. This is a piece to me that will open up this city to outside employment that we currently do not have. It's the one piece that Bellingham, at least in my experience, is truly missing. And this will be that lightning rod. I've seen the firsthand shift, the attraction and growth that is generated from repurposing of abandoned and underutilized waterfront property. And I personally believe that the Harcourt Vision Plan will be the awakening of a much underutilized Bellingham waterfront. You know, I think of Bellingham, and this is not meant to be derogatory, but I think of it as a diamond in the rough. And I think that this project has the capabilities to bring out the brilliance that is already here in the city. Thank you so much for your time, and I would really support you in getting 100% behind this vision plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. My apologies on the last name, Mr. Sandoz. Yes, sorry about that. Ken Lingbloom, and if you haven't signed up but do want to say something, that's fine. And normally we have a 3-minute limit. I give people leeway, so feel free.
Good evening. My name is Ken Lingbloom. I'm here more to address or ask questions about some of the, quote, quirks of rehabbing the old, as they say, fine old granary building. The kind of an alpha and omega thing with me. When I first started my near 40 years at Georgia Pacific, I started in the board mill. My last 25 years were indeed inside what we called the co-op, the granary building. So it is old, depending on one's frame of reference. Our guests from the old country, that's just a young thing here we have. But my main question is dealing with how is the issue of the basement flooding being addressed. And I'm going to be real curious to see, like I say, I worked in that building 25 years, so going down in your boots to wade around 2 or 3 times a year was not all that much fun. And one other thing, we rarely ever have an opportunity to take what is now a public parcel and maintain public control of that. Once it's gone to private hands, it will never come back, and I feel that would be a huge loss to the citizens of Bellingham and Whatcom County. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So that's all that's signed up, and anybody else want to say anything during our public comment period? All right, so see a few hands. So just line up over here and have at it. If you would introduce yourself by name so that we can get that on the record. And Councilwoman Vargas.
Good evening, and I am not here as my name is Pinky Vargas, but I'm not here as my role as a Bellingham City Council member. I'm here actually as a person who serves on our LTAC, on our tourism board. And I just want to advocate for the convention center and the hotel. I think it's really important for us to build our city in order to have this as a resource. We constantly have discussions about bringing groups here and being able to house people. Where are we going to put them? And it's a really challenging question, and I think it's an important element for us to have in this city to grow, to have the kind of economic vitality that we actually want in the future. I think it's an important role. And in my previous career, I did 12 years as a producer of trade shows and events nationwide. So I would plan my entire year around the cities that I'd have to go for conventions and what the events that I would do associated be with that city all the time. So, and I also know what it's like to choose a city and decide to have the convention there because it's an amazing city. I know it's a powerful tool. I think it's something the city really needs to move forward. So I just want to advocate for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Another city councilperson?
So I'm also on the Bellingham City Council, like Pinky. I am going to speak as a city council member, but I'm not speaking for the entire council. These are my views and my views alone. But I think they'd be pretty common. I want excitement and energy in the waterfront. And I think that's one of the things that Harcourt Development can bring to the waterfront. I'd like that to be an exciting high-tech opportunity as well as working jobs, district energy. There's a lot of exciting things that we can do on the waterfront. And I want to see that excitement so that we can differentiate ourselves. There was a recent article in the New York Times about the tech corridor from Vancouver to Seattle. And we're right in the middle, and I don't want people to fly over. I think there's an enormous opportunity, a lot of energy locally for attracting those kind of businesses, but we need a place that people will notice. The other thing is I've heard it sometimes said that if there needs to be changes to the waterfront plan, that might be kind of embarrassing for the city, or might be kind of embarrassing for the city council if we had to change our minds publicly that maybe we didn't get it right the first time. There's no embarrassment in adopting a better idea. If there's a better idea, if things need to be changed to improve the plan, I'm willing to look at that. I think I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I think that's probably sure. Better ideas should always be listened to. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. Mr. McKenzie.
I'm Mike McKenzie. I reside on Lummi Island. I work and do business in Bellingham. I'm just coming before you for a couple of minutes with wearing a logo, Bellingham Sea Feast 2016, of which I'm extremely proud today. Until Saturday, it was a mystery and a exciting, new, vibrant idea. And Saturday, we left an indelible footprint on the Bellingham waterfront. And for years to come, it'll be an amazing event. I thought I'd take a minute just on behalf of the extraordinary planning and organizing staff of an army of volunteers to thank the Port of Bellingham and its staff for all that you did to help make this successful, and to thank the Port Commissioners, and I'll come back to that in a moment, to help make it successful. And since I noticed that Mayor Linville and Councilwoman Vargas and Councilman Lillquist are in the audience, certainly a huge thanks goes to the City of Bellingham for the seed funding of this event. A couple of numbers I'll share with you. We're still compiling data. One is that with just 4 or 14 vendors reporting in, we've learned that those 4 doled out about 5,200 meals or sandwiches. We still have 10 more to report. The other really important number to report to you is that Port Commissioner McCauley and Port Commissioner Bobby had combined slurped a few more oysters than their challenge from the City Council. City Councilman Lillquist was the official winner of the oyster shucking and slurping contest with 24. And the 2 of you combined exceeded that by about 5 or 6. The last time I saw him, I thought he'd have his head in a trash can, but he said no. And that was, by the way, in 2 minutes. And he said, no, I want some more. But again, a hearty thank you to all of you for making this an amazing event, and we look forward to 2017.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Neufeld. I'm the current president of the Technology Alliance Group here in Bellingham. I also work for Comcast in their enterprise division. I've worked in the technology industry for the last 20 years, and one thing technology companies locally here are looking for is a growing ecosystem. And what that means is we want more companies, which will bring more employees, because as there's a large group of companies here, that means people who move here from Seattle or San Francisco know that if the job doesn't turn out, they can go to another company here in Bellingham and stay here. Right now, a lot of conventions are happening at Semiahmoo, which is a great place, But that means people don't stop here in Bellingham. They do the usual thing. They get gas in Bellingham, and then they go on their way to Canada, or wherever that may be. I really believe a hotel in the downtown with the convention center is something we need. Right now, we do 4 events a year which attract businesses to this area to come and speak and also to participate with local businesses and employees. And we are a number of times very constricted in trying to do that event here in Bellingham. We want to keep it in Bellingham for the reasons I already said. I've spent quite a bit of time with John Reed. I've met the 2 Pats here. We've talked. They've done some great projects in Dublin that have technology focus. We believe the more synergy we can create in this area by getting a hotel, getting technology companies here, will be a great advantage to all of us here and to our kids as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. I feel like I know so many people.
Hello, Mike.
Hi.
And Port Commissioners and Patrick's. I'm Peter Fraser, and Bellingham born and bred. I cannot say it any better than Dwayne and Alice and Mr. Sandoz. I'm not going to repeat it all, but I want to publicly support the Harcourt Vision Plan and the idea of a hotel on our waterfront, particularly in the board mill. I believe that now is the time that we have had many years to put together a plan, and I thank everybody who has participated, but I love what we have here, and I really like the idea of moving forward. I think now is the time, and it's going to be a great thing for Bellingham, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter.
I am Meg Weber. I'm the Executive Director of TAG, and wanted to echo what Michael and Dwayne and others brought up already regarding the desire of this to be really an area for innovation and thought leadership. I have the fortunate opportunity to talk to hundreds of leaders from around the Pacific Northwest who would love to have their business located here in Bellingham. Many people think that we're 3 hours or more away from Seattle, and so we have the opportunity to invite in leaders over and over again for conferences and events, and just think that having the opportunity to have a much bigger venue right on the waterfront where we can welcome them into town really will offer that opportunity to spur innovation within our community. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Meg. Hey, Meg, quick question. You've met Pat?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Alex McLean, thanks guys for presenting this tonight and for being here, letting us comment. I happen to work for Harcourt right now. I have the great pleasure of being in the granary every day and bashing that thing into shape. It's pretty fun. It's going to be a cool project. But tonight I'm just commenting as a citizen regarding the plan. And as Michael Lilliquist mentioned, if there's a better design, we should take it. And the thing that I'm interested in is not so much the buildings as that park that curves all the way down to right through the middle of the development. Some of the bigger plans that I've seen show that green belt going all the way through the development. And this trail here that you can see off of the, out the window there, that boardwalk, that actually gets 900,000 people on it every year. So if you had the opportunity to have a continuous green belt, non-pedestrian, I served on the Transportation Commission and the Greenways Advisory Committee for a couple of years, and this city loves its greenways. And if we had a continuous belt going through this, pretty dense development, I think it'd be a vast improvement over the kind of smaller parks that we've seen in previous plans. So that's all I got. Thanks again.
Thank you, Alex.
Hello, I'm Glenn Smith Whitfield. I grew up in Bellingham. My father was a roofing contractor, and I'm a real estate broker, have been for a long time. I wanted to speak out and say that I feel we need more people living downtown. When I was a kid growing up, I remember the streets downtown being crowded with people shopping Newberry's, Penny's, everything was downtown. In order to do that, I think you need middle-class housing. I think you need hotels. And I think you were going to sell some of the units there, as I recall. Were you not? I mean, yeah. So in some essence, these are also condominiums, which we need. We have a strong demand for them. I know that. I would be one of the people that would like to live downtown if there was a place I want to live. And I guess that's it.
Could you spell your last name for me?
My last name is Whitfield, W-H-I-T-F-I-E-L-D. Middle name is Smith, Glenn Smith Whitfield. I changed my middle name to my last name.
Okay.
So I grew up as Glenn Smith.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Ann Damani McKinney with Simmering Tava. We are a home-style organic Indian food. You find us mostly at the farmer's market. And right now we're borrowing Mallard's ice cream truck as our ice cream truck. I'm actually here. We have about 10 to 15 different food-oriented vendors that are interested in this space. We're looking at, since most of us are a little too small to do something on our own, we're looking at coming in together so that we can rent the space. So the question is, you're bringing in different people to live, to work, to the hotels. How are you going to feed them? How are you going to keep them entertained and excited about being there? And that's what we're here for, and that's what we're working on right now. I just wanted to let you know that we're very excited about this project, and we are hoping that we can move forward no matter what our individual sizes are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get the name?
Is it, your last name is McKinney?
Yeah, it's a hyphen gone wrong. It's Damani McKinney. D as in David, A as in Apple, M as in Matthew, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, I as in Isaac. Then it's McKinney.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's a shorthand.
I don't have shorthand.
My name is Matt Woolsey. I own the Woolsey Company, local construction consulting company, construction cost estimating predominantly. I also work with Dwayne and Meg with TAG quite extensively. So I kind of wanted to just mention a point that speaks in favor of the convention center and the hotel, which is that it's not very often that a small to medium-sized city grows this quickly in one fell swoop, one project, one development. With that, I think it kind of echoes Dwayne's comments about the ecosystem and growing the ecosystem. We need to plan into this project that we're not going to be the same Bellingham we were. Not the same size city, not the same population or the same type of companies for that matter, size and stature-wise. A decent hotel and conference center has unlimited uses to the companies, to the people that will be moving here and working here as a result of this development. So I feel like we need to grow all of the logistics around Bellingham. That includes housing, transportation, items like the convention center and hotel. We kind of have to think of it holistically as far as how we need to accommodate the growth we're looking at here in the next decade. And I think the convention center is one of those. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, my name is Tim Nelson. I am a construction management consultant. I had no intention of speaking to the group here, but have been compelled by some of the comments that I'm hearing. Predominantly those that are positive and they echo vitality and hope for the region. I've had the pleasure of working with Harcourt in Las Vegas on their Sullivan Square project, and can attest to the quality of the world-class quality of this developer. So the port and city have done extremely well in selecting Harcourt as your development partner. I also wanted to mention that I had the privilege of being involved, being the owner's construction representative for a very similar project in Sacramento, the Rail Yards project there, which is 240-acre urban infill brownfield project with a rail system going through it. So there's a lot of similarities. And really the point that I wanted to make is this. I watched the rail yards project revitalize the city of Sacramento and bring a level of participation and collaborative spirit and teamwork that I don't think the city has seen in any of their development projects that rivals that level of excitement and involvement. So just as the others have said, this project has such dramatic potential to shape the future of Bellingham for the foreseeable future. The councilman who made the observation that a better idea is worth considering is right on point. And as the stakeholders in this process convene and dialogue and take Harcourt's lead on this, I would encourage that spirit of collaboration and consideration of new ideas that have the potential to make this one of the greatest redevelopment projects on the West Coast. Congratulations to the port for getting to this point, to Harcourt for advancing your concept.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anybody else during this public comment period? Okay, we are going to move into our presentation. Kelly, we have a seat for you, Mayor Linville, up here. If you would like to join us, if you are good back there, feel free to stay now that I've called you out. It's, all right. So we have a couple of folks from Harcourt here. We have Pat Dougherty, wave Pat, and Pat Powers. And Ms. Pat Powers is going to do a little presentation for us, and I think, Rob, you're going to set that up.
So if you're on this side of the room, you may want to go stand by the door just temporarily and then come back and take your seat because you'll not be able to see the screen. So if you can't see the screen, maybe move over. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pat Power.
Okay.
It's not streaming right now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, mayor. I'd like to introduce myself, Pat Power, Director of Harcourt Developments, together with our founder and chairman, Pat Dougherty, who's here as Commissioner McCauley referred to. A number of weeks ago, Rob Fix asked me would I address the commissioners. I didn't think it involved an audience of such a size, but there it goes. I suppose said to Rob, what would I convey to who would be prepared to listen to me? And I was taking the format of a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about similar projects we've undertaken, which some of them will bear resemblance to what we'll endeavour to achieve at Bellingham Waterfront, and then update you on the progress of the granary building that has been referred to, and the next steps that we intend taking at the Bellingham Waterfront. So to date, we've been collaborating very closely with the port and also the staff at the City of Bellingham themselves. And to introduce yourselves, I suppose it's very difficult to be bashful about yourself, but we actually trade across 11 different countries. We're privately owned. Through our various organisations, we have about 1,350 employees. We're involved in most aspects of real estate, be it retail. We have a number of shopping malls, business parks, industrial parks, leisure, residential, and we've done some medical-related schemes as well. And really what I'm going to do is take you through about 3 or 4 projects just to show you what we've done and illustrate the type of similarities, as I said. The first one I'm going to take you briefly through is Titanic Water in Belfast. Not too dissimilar to the waterfront. It's twice the size in acreage in terms of its 200 acres. But We got involved there early 2014, and to date, roughly about $540 million has been invested into the scheme. It's between accommodation, working and leisure. There's about 18,000 occupants there on a daily basis. And we've constructed to date about 1.7 million square feet with the master plan, which I'll show you a quick slide on, can be anything from 20 to 25 to 30 million square feet, depending how we broaden it. But immediately we've planned about 3 million additional square feet. And I'm going to go through, because it's a mixed-use scheme like we intend in Bellingham, in the waterfront, I'll show you a few of the slides to show some of the buildings on a close-up basis. But we've done about 475 residential units. We've done ground floor active space units underneath those for retail. We have one hotel complete and one under construction. And the one under construction is the drawing office, that actually where the Titanic was designed. Not alone is this the site where the Titanic was developed, it was designed, set sail from. And we went there, around 2003, 2004. There wasn't as much as a plaque to say this is where the Titanic was designed or set sail from. And one of the projects has been a commemorative project to the Titanic, which again has been a catalyst for tourism in Northern Ireland. Now it's actually the second most visited attraction in the entire of Ireland. Of course, second to Guinness's. And we use the public realm space. The slipways where the Titanic and the Olympic actually set sail from occupies about 7 acres, and we've made a hard and soft landscaped area from that. And it seems to be a place of favour for different festivals, like the one you've mentioned you had yourself at the weekend. But we've had some major MTV awards, Giro d'Italia, with 2 stages of the cycle race take place there. But it's a sustainable mixed-use scheme, and I'll show you on a close-up basis. That's the master plan. And master plans change as cities grow and as demand changes, but it's a fulcrum to actually show people what they're buying into in terms of an overall scheme. The likes of the apartments, again, showing up on a closer basis. They're waterfront apartments. That's the Titanic commemorative project, which opened for the centenary of the Titanic in 2012, April 2012. And in its 4th year, we've had over 3 million visitors to date. And people thought that it would start and then taper off. But the busiest month we have ever had since it opened was August just past. Again, another novel use class, the old paint hall where they used to paint the ships. We did an extension for, these are film studios. And for any of you that are fans, that's actually where the sets are for the indoor shooting of the Game of Thrones. Something novel, this is actually 11 acres of the ground that's actually not being used at the moment. And a Cuban-American contemporary artist used that 11 acres and created this sculpture that can be seen from the air. It's actually a sculpture done on the soil. It's a novel one, but again, it's just, I'm going to show you in other developments that we do have a pride in the sense of environment, and with that we do a lot of public art, and I'll show you that in some other schemes. Stanley Dock, Liverpool. It's another waterfront development. It's where the Leeds Canal meets the Mersey in Liverpool. It's 3 large standing buildings in derelict order, disused for many decades, and it extends to over about 2 million square feet, just to give you an order of sense of magnitude. The building on the left is the smallest of the 3, which is roughly about 200,000 square feet. The building on the right is muted to be the largest brick building in the world. Now, it's muted to have 27 million bricks, but I have to confess I haven't counted them, so I'll take that accolade as it's reported. But that building on the left is a 154-bed hotel and conference centre. And there's a sister building of that. That was known as the North Warehouse. It's today known as the Titanic Hotel Liverpool. And a sister building of that on the south. Those both buildings were constructed in 1845, just to give you a sense of their age. And then in 1901, the brick building known as the Tobacco Warehouse was built in the centre. Now, in terms of refurbishment, I just shown this slide principally to show the dereliction of the North Warehouse when we commenced. If you look at the slide on the left, shows what it was like. On the right shows the present-day restaurant that takes up that very same space. The Rum Warehouse is today a conference centre. Again, the slides on top show its state before we took it over. That seats roughly 1,300. It can go to 1,300 people, but effectively we can subdivide it to suit. There's been exhibitions, there's been meetings, and there's an upstairs then which we have subdividable rooms, and that's a token to the Titanic staircase on the right. I'll briefly just show you before and after slides. It's a hotel that trades well, and it's actually unique because it's an existing building. I just really wanted to illustrate how we as an organisation have taken buildings in disrepair, being a UNESCO World Heritage Site also, I must add, and that these buildings can be brought into active use for people to enjoy. If it was an apartment building, it probably would have been 150, 160 apartments. It's a 154-bed hotel. But since it opened July 2 years ago, we've had over 80,000 people through the door via staying in the accommodation or using the conference centre. So it actually has been a good catalyst for getting people into the scheme. From the back of that, we have a lot of people inquiring about our next phases in terms of the residential. So it's become a public building, but it's become a building that people are able to visualise and actually see what we're creating in the buildings adjoining. Again, just flicking on to show the finished product, not to labour too much on it. The basement is the top right-hand slide there, which illustrates the spa and leisure area in the basement. And you mentioned earlier about buildings, and that's actually under the basin, the adjoining waterway. And that, when we took it over, had water up to the height of almost a lectern here. And we actually have the fully functioning our own offices, the back of house offices in the hotel, and all that there today. So that actually, I must admit, when we went to see it first, was full of water as well. But effectively, it's now award-winning spa. Just really, again, being a bit bashful, but it has won a number of awards, more for regeneration, planning awards, heritage awards, regeneration, as I said. And I think the latest accolade we got this year, which is a nice one to get, was the winner of the UK Luxury Hotel of the Year for 2016. The reason for speaking about Stanley Dock in terms of its magnitude, in terms of its reconstruction, regeneration of old buildings, but there's one little, I suppose, relationship that particular building has with this part of the world. It's a novel slide, but it's factual. Russell Wilson had his pre-wedding dinner there and stay there with his wife at the time. I think he's the second man. I think Rob Fix was the first famous man from the Northwest. So I think he's earmarked to open the next hotel we do, hopefully in Bellingham. Jumping on briefly, because not to labour too much about ourselves, Park West is a scheme we've done in Dublin, and it has some similarities back again. It was an area where it was just, I suppose, we remember when there was animals, as in horse and cattle on it. Today it's the 230 acres, we've built about 4.4 million square feet. It has about 1.1 million of offices, 2.2 million of industrial, 450 residential homes, and we did a hotel there for 146 bed hotel, which trades actually extremely well. Retail, again, servicing the from a zero start, there's about 8,000-9,000 people working there today, and of course with the leisure facilities that go with it. I'm just going to briefly show you a slide which shows that tract of land which was in the mid-90s. It was landlocked. We had to construct 3 bridges, one over a canal, one over an active railway line, and we did a second one down replacing an old bridge over the canal. So just again, a point of novelty really is if you look at the reservoir there, that's a former supply of water for Guinnesses as well. So. But today, as I said, it's a vibrant place. There's over 300 companies there from a standing start. We've constructed a new train station which serves the park, and there's a lot of things that we can draw upon from Park West that will favour Bellingham in terms of attracting companies into the region. There's a lot of IT companies related there. They like the parkland type of environment, and pretty much sometimes they don't necessarily need and want to be downtown, and it's an alternative to expensive locations, which I think Bellingham itself will be in due course. Again, I touched on it earlier, but briefly, public art is something we like to do, because if you go back to the earlier slide I've shown there where it's a blank field, what you're trying to do is create an environment where people actually, where people can live, work, play, but also enjoy their surroundings. A lot of these sculpture pieces, there are stories about them, and maybe I get to meet you individually at some stage, because the one at the bottom left is the son of Sisyphus, and that's the polite version, where the guy is destined, if you remember the old Greek myth, where the guy is destined to push the ball up hill all his life. So often I speak with him. And the one in the middle then is 116 feet high, carbon fibre wave, which moves about 16 feet each way. That's fine mist that comes off it in the bottom. That actually gets turned off a couple of days, in windy days in the year, I must admit. But I think the novel story behind that one is that when the strap, when they were in putting it in situ, was released and people saw it starting to move, they actually vacated their building. I suppose we should have educated them that it was part of the visual appearance of the sculpture. Briefly again, as I say, these likes of Park West, the likes of Titanic Quarter, the likes of other schemes, we can get into lots and lots of details. I'm only drawing on the ones and the elements that make similarity to Bellingham. And like the other one, Loch S Castle, an old ruined castle, disused, and in 2006, 2007, that was done in probably one of the wettest winters came, and that opened in December of 2007, and it's a 5-star hotel, and believe it or not, we won Best Luxury Country Hotel of the Year awards under the world's best luxury country hotels, which is, we don't get many world medals, but we got it for this particular hotel, which was a nice accolade. So that's really just some of the schemes, just to show that was a refurbishment property again. And really then I want to touch on what we are doing in Bellingham, what we propose to do in Bellingham, and really what I'm going to show in this particular slide. Just for a lot of people can't read plans, it's not maybe not their industry, etc. But just as a point of note, the red building on the far off side represents the granary building. The building nearest to us, the long one, is the board mill building. So you get a sense of the geography. So effectively, in between that represents the first phases of the Bellingham waterfront. This vision plan, I'm going to take you through just to show you the granary building, some of the next schemes we're embarking on, the waterfront condominiums, an office building which will be a gateway building parallel to the granary building, and then a retirement village within the scheme, and then potentially the board mill building to redevelop it into a hotel and a conference centre with a view to it being a nucleus to draw people to the waterfront area. The next slide is pretty much the granary building itself, and a lot of people have referred that they've been into it during the course of the last couple of weeks, and I suppose as it's been a building site, a lot of people don't get to see what's inside. I was asked to update in terms of what's happening, so I'm going to show a couple of slides that illustrate that there is actually work going on inside the building. I needn't tell you about your own history. It is an over a 90-year-old building, and I suppose our function is to make sure that it goes for the next 90 years, which most of us here will see out. That's the permit plans, which we have the permits to extend it, refurbish it, but I'm going to show you the internal ones. Most people see that work ongoing as they pass. But some of the ones that's happening upstairs, on the verandas, on the terraces, that's actually what's happening behind the scenes. And in fairness to Robbie, asked me to update you on that. So in fairness, that's what's happening behind the scenes. The decking, the roof. Now those in fairness, if I may give credit, but those photographs are probably 10 days old. That actual has been made watertight at this stage and will probably be complete by the end of next week in terms of being a watertight building. So work is ongoing on that particular building, as you know. Internally, again, part of our restoration, I suppose it's like lifting the hood or the bonnet, as we call it, of your car. Once you get in under it, you actually find that you have a lot more to do. So we've replaced a lot more beams and joists and that as we, as I said, refurbish that building to bring it into the future. A lot of interest in it. I think we were just talking about the construction of it this evening, but there has been a lot of interest in it, which is a testament to the Belfast waterfront development, what the port have achieved, obviously with the assistance of the city in terms of the awareness that's going on. I think since work has started, interest has been quite strong. So that's the granary building. The next steps or the next phases that Rob asked me to touch on was purely around what ones will are likely to be the next projects, and we've been working extensively over the last number of days in terms of putting the ducks in a row in order to get ready to go for permits for the next schemes. This area, which is carrying on a linear basis from the granary. Obviously, between the red area and the granary is the Watcombe Park that's planned for there, and of course there'll be a park continuing on a linear basis down along the waterway. But inside that, then we will be doing what we'll term the Bellingham waterfront residential. In that particular area with underground car parking, obviously designed to a high quality finish, conducive to its location. The next one that we'll do in conjunction to that I refer to being the commercial building, which is really going to be the gateway building in conjunction with the granary building, which is the entrance to the waterfront area. So that's kind of the location of that. And the idea is that to do whatever it takes, 100,000 square feet or so, with active space on the ground floor, so we can actually set a style, set a tone that can start to attract companies to the waterfront. Inside that then, we have an area highlighted where we intend to do more residential, but of a different variety, different form. It'll be independent living, assisted living, and potentially care home, obviously with the leisure amenities that go with it. So those three projects then will lead us on to what some people have referred to here earlier, is the board mill building. The board mill building is a kind of an anchor at this side of the scheme, which we referred to on the plan earlier. We have plans drawn up to create a 165-bed hotel, a conference area that'll seat 800 to 1,000 people, again to attract that size of I suppose what we call MICE business, being the meeting, conference and exhibition space. And then we'll do some, what we call a part hotel, maybe call it suites, but people that may be seconded to the city for a period of time that may not want to rent a full house, that will just use it as a suite stroke apartment, and obviously the commercial space that goes with that, food and beverage uses. So really, to recap, the granary building, the work is ongoing, and that will continue on with a view to be complete, ready for tenants fit out in the spring, with the tenants fit out culminating to an opening next summer. Meantime, we're doing a design review to get on with the next phase of the development, be it the waterfront residential project, and then we're working up then to get on with applications in for the retirement living sector, the Gateway Commercial Building, and in due course, the Board Mill Building. So that leads us back then to show you geographically where each of those potential portions of the development will be. As you see from left to right, the Board Mill Building, the Waterfront Residential, the Granary Building, which is, as I say, highlighted in red, and next to that will be the Gateway Commercial Building, and then the Retirement Village. And that's kind of just a recap to come back to the particular site that we'll all know and continue to love as the Bellingham Waterfront Development.
All right, thank you, Pat. So since this is our meeting, we're going to start with our questions, but Pat did say that certainly would entertain some questions from the audience in a little bit. So let's start with Commissioner Robbins. Any questions for now?
Well, I guess my first question is what's the next step? What buildings do you plan to do? Do you plan to do more than one at a time? And what would be your next process?
It should just pick you up.
The 4 projects that I mentioned as the next steps, they're actually 4 individual. They complement each other. They don't compete with each other. So the residential will be a separate excursion to the Gateway office building, and will be a separate excursion to the hotel and conference area, and then the retirement village will be another nucleus in its own right. So I think the waterfront residential will most likely be the next, that's furthest advanced in terms of, but that's the one that will create the environment for people to, because we're trying to create the environment, Commissioner, so that people can get down and actually become part. And one of the slides was actually to show that the Bellingham waterfront is actually an extension of downtown Bellingham.
I'm really excited to see the hotel from the standpoint that I want to fill rooms here at our hotels. And most of them are full on the weekends, and the time they aren't full is during the weekdays. And I've always felt that a conference center, convention center, conference center would help that. All the conferences that I go to are during the week, and it would help fill the hotels. And so that's why I'm really excited that that's on the radar for the near future.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Well, Commissioner Robbins asked one of the questions I was going to ask, but I'd just like to extend a hand of thanks to Harcourt. We met individually this week with Patrick, and it was quite enlightening as their vision of what they'd like to do. And I was able to meet folks that hadn't been able to meet before we had our previous meetings. So I just say thanks for explaining and giving us clarity and transparency on your vision of what you're going to do for us here in Bellingham. Thank you.
That's it? All right. So on the timing question, the residential building, what sort of time frame are we looking at getting started on that one?
Over the last couple of days, we've been working with the port and the city in terms of the timescales to get in the permits and timescales it takes to come through. So the objective is to get in the permits this year with a view to getting it out and then starting next year.
Okay, and then I understand the office building may be following that one?
Correct, yeah. But it won't be a case that it'll dovetail following it. A lot of this will be happening in parallel. And then should something else come in the meantime, that can come on. So they'll be all running at their own pace.
Okay. How high is that particular building? Are you thinking right now?
Well, it's not determined yet, but most likely 4, maybe 5 stories.
5 stories. Right. And is that pretty typical then for most of the buildings? Are going to be in that 4 and 5 story range?
What we're actually going to do is start off with the waterfront at 2, and then walk back 3, 4, and then cross Granary Avenue, and then walk along those bases. So it's a tiered, but also then if you're up in the Bay Area, commercial area, that you're looking at, still continuously looking down.
So a lot of people have been concerned that some of the height allowances further away from the water are super high. But I don't think I've heard you all talking much about building too tall at all. So across the site, are we thinking similar heights in that 4 and 5 or 7, 8, 9, 10?
Yes. We wanted to start at the front at 2 and go back. It could go to 12 at the very back, just bordering the railway line. It is having it sloping up from the front, having the front more like a boardwalk. So you're up then 2 stories. It's not massive, isn't it? 3, 4.
So maybe up to 12 in the far back.
I would say that would be the highest, yeah.
Okay, all right.
We're trying to keep it so it's not blocking any view as you come down at the other side.
Got it. Everybody get that? Pat's a soft-spoken fella. All right. The waterfront residential, that one. So the board mill, Brian Gowan, are you here still? All right, I'm gonna ask this, you might jump in here. I'm gonna need you up front. Sorry about the clunky nature of our format tonight. Normally we have microphones out there for folks. So the board mill sits on a piece of property that if I'm recalling correctly, we're not doing underground cleanups directly underneath that structure.
That's correct. Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental Programs, the Port of Bellingham. The footprint of the board mill building is actually within the part of the site that we have just finished the cleanup on. So the capping project, that the landscape has changed a bit with the new gravel pads, and there's some paved areas in and around there. So that's all part of a cleanup project that is now complete just last week. And as far as the Department of Ecology process is concerned, that portion of the site is now cleaned up.
Okay, and then the part that they're proposing where the new building would go to the south of that, what are we looking at as far as process to get that prepared for construction?
I think I would have to double check on all of the exact footprints, but I think everything that Harcourt has proposed and discussed this afternoon is all within the portions of the site that has now just been cleaned up as part of that capping project.
Okay, so there was a talk about shifting further, maybe you can jump in on this one, Rob. So the original thought was 3 acres, or was it?
You're talking about into the, further to the south?
Pushing
kind of
towards the log pond,
industrial,
right?
Yeah. Staff's still working on that, trying to figure out how we can minimize that impact so we can come and have that discussion with you. Some of that land might require some further cleanup, but I think where Harcourt stops is clean.
That's right.
That's all good in there? Okay.
Whereas I think maybe some of the confusion is where we had drawn the boundary of the general binding site plan. Those boundaries do extend further into a portion of the site that hasn't been cleaned up, but that's not part of the Harcourt discussion that any of the site's portions that I've seen.
Okay, and I remember seeing a document some years ago, and it was showing strange shaped polygons, and it looked like one of those colored polygons had stretched up almost to the board mill with some underground contamination, but.
That's correct. This is a little bit further south than the footprint of where the board mill hotel proposal is.
All right, so I probably said something inappropriate yesterday morning at breakfast about there may be some delays with cleanups for a conference center concept, but other than.
Right, no, that all should be part of the site that was capped and cleaned up in this last phase of work that was just completed.
Okay, great, so no delays on that one. I know we had some delays, ecology and that sort of thing with just the granary itself.
Right.
But these should all be clarified.
We've ironed through a lot of that as part of the granary process. We worked through a lot of those wrinkles, and this is going to be a much more efficient process to file all of the required documents that go along with the completion of that cap.
So that along that same line, that creates a question with me. The western crossing is going to be south of the board mill, is that correct?
Well, where Western Crossing is located today is kind of, the board mill is right in the middle of the 6 acres that we've deemed for Western Crossing. Where they move to still needs to be discussed between the commission and Western and agreed to. So that has not been agreed to yet.
Western still wants land.
Yes, sir. Western still plans on a 6 acre development. Western's been very cooperative in working with both Harcourt and the port and the city on exactly where that 6 acres is. There's some criteria they want met, and I think we can do that. So it's just a matter of further conversations.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Brian. So, back to Pat. One of the images we saw showed a bit of a serpentine park through the buildings that you're proposing to put up. How would that process work as far as timing on that, and is it something that Harcourt wants to build, or is it something that we'd be looking at doing?
Which one was that?
The park
What do you
running
call
through.
it? I call it the serpentine park.
The park running through, we would do that.
So Harcourt would take care
Yeah.
of that, okay. And then Rob, could you point to,
I'm having a hard time here. This one with cursor is what Mr. McCauley's talking about.
Finger, we can't see
you can't,
Thank you.
the green wiggly thing in the middle. That, yes. So I wanted to point that out, and thank you for filling us in. That particular park, and I think folks have noticed the layout of the entire site has changed a bit under this proposal, and that park wasn't on it's not in the master plan. There's actually almost a street that goes through most of that. And I think right now, is it on the inside of the railroad, or do we have to get the railroad?
Yes, sir. No, it's on the inside.
It's on the inside of the railroad. So this could happen even if the railroad doesn't move.
So the railroad is probably very
It's
along this.
further back in there.
Right in there.
Okay.
This is the cogen plant, and kind of hugs the cogen plant, and then turns and goes under.
That's its current location?
That's its current location.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really have any more particular questions on that. Okay, anything further? No?
Mayor?
All right, Mayor Linville, we've invited you up here. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Pat or Pat?
Nope, I don't. I think I got a lot of my questions already answered. And I'm kind of a surprise to myself sitting up here, so I'm listening. I'm interested for the public comments.
And the mayor's had some meetings with Harcourt to voice concerns and come up with some ideas. So she's had some time with them this week.
Excellent, thank you. Pat Powers has generously offered to answer questions from you folks. So if you have any questions, I think we'll just raise hands. Pat, if you'd like to choose who you want to answer, or excuse me.
I think we need folks to line up with the mic again.
Oh, we want the mic?
Otherwise, we will not hear them for the video.
Okay, that makes it way easier for me then.
If we do the same thing we did earlier.
Feel free, yeah?
Again, my name's Alice Clark, and I represent the Downtown Bellingham Partnership. We do a lot of events downtown, and we've been currently doing it on the streets, and they've been getting really crowded. So it looked like in Dublin you had a venue that had a large crowd. I'm wondering where that might wind up if we could do something like that in this development. I want to be conscious of the residents that are living down there, especially the seniors. So is that like potentially here?
Correct, yeah. The slide for the crowd was actually in Belfast on the slipways for the Titanic, and it was in the public realm space, like where you've just pointed to the parks.
Okay.
And that's for public enjoyment, and that would be an ideal space for that type of activity.
Is there anything related to like an amphitheater that could be integrated into that space? Or?
Well, it's actually, we had a series of concerts in Belfast over the summer, and there was a temporary one created for that. So it wouldn't be a consistent amphitheater, but one gets created by the promoters. That's normally what happens.
All right. Thank you.
Judith Akins, a Bellingham resident. I'm an environmental and member of the Sierra Club, and there's a little bit of the environmental things that have been mentioned, but what struck me is light pollution on the waterfront, and traveling to a lot of cities, particularly by the sea, is that people are trying to diminish the light pollution, and I was wondering if that's been thought about, because seeing all these slides from your developments, that is there a way that you could construct your light that would not fill our skies with light so much as I've seen in these slides? And there was actually worldwide underfoot, it's called Dark Skies, and just, you know, dimming the lights, putting them down, so that, you know, you can still see the environment at the waterfront. Thank you.
Ordinarily, the street lighting and has a code of lux, and we'll be conforming with whatever is required.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I'm Jim Kyle, President of the Working Waterfront Coalition of Whatcom County. My question has to do with the fact that I've heard the word excitement mentioned several times. To me, being a boater primarily all my life, excitement in this case, what I think of is approaching the development in a boat and being able to moor there and explore downtown Bellingham and take advantage of all the things that are offered. And there are some preliminary plans possibly for a facility, but I'm just wondering how much that potential access route plays in the potential for a development like this that you've worked on this type before.
Yeah, I think the in-water work will be done by the port, and the port does have plans to put floats in. Everything's subject to budget constraints, so when it gets done, we can't really commit to that, but there's certainly plans to have transient moorage somewhere on that side of the Whatcom Waterway and close to this development, because we do recognize that importance. Thanks, Jim.
So, Jim, one thing that's been quite clear, and we had our budget conversation earlier, is a lot of the things that we'd like to do, we're not going to be able to do, and one of them is taking out the old GP wharf. So we're gonna dismantle part of it that's failing, but I think a lot of it's going to remain in place, so we can definitely use that for not only visitor moorage, but also to continue tying up commercial barges and other vessels like that, so we can still provide that service. But it definitely, I think, works with what the Harcourt folks are proposing. So all of their buildings in the water are going to have to be stepped back anyway, and they don't have landscaping in front of them. So if we can hang on to that wharf, then we can still use that for visitor moorage, but it works with their proposals as well.
Hi, Ann Damani McKinney again. I actually have two questions. One question is on the behalf of a couple of us in the audience. Is the opportunity, specifically in the granary or another building, but we were wondering more of a co-op approach in terms of smaller businesses that are Bellingham, that are local, that would be able to come in, because we do not have the finances to be able to meet some of the beautiful projects that you have. Would that be an opportunity? Is that even an option for conversation?
Yes, I believe you had a tour of the building on Friday.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so we've learned through John Reed your interest, and we'll be very keen to advance discussions with you and others. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And my other question is more of a logistic question. Looking at your other projects, going along pollution angles, it's sound pollution. I am very familiar with, in Atlanta, working with some old industrial buildings, and one of the common problems that we have is sound. When they're redone and they're polished, they are gorgeous. But the sound that reverberates from having a lot of people in there, music and other activities, it can be deafening. Is that something that we're looking at when we are refurbishing these buildings, or can we, if it's not already on the table?
Yeah, we've had some developments where we've had to do audio tests to measure the decibel of them, especially where there'd be nighttime uses, and normally there's a set standard for that. So we have had developments where we've had to regulate the level of decibel.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Ray Baldwin. I was wondering if Harcourt had any experience with railroads running past their buildings and the noise that is generated from that kind of activity, and how you dealt with it.
Well, we've had experience dealing with the railroads in terms of the northern boundary in Park West, but they did not blow their horn as loud. being flippant, but we did that. We have not had dealings with the railroad in relation to the Bellingham waterfront development. I think the best one to comment on that, and have had a lot of conversations, would be the port themselves.
I also noticed that there was a large change in the street orientation of your new plan with the S-type of park. Plans I've seen generated from Bellingham Port had a diagonal street system rather than an orthogonal relative to the main part of the city. And I was wondering, is that locked in the plan, or is there going to have to be changes from the city and the port on their planning to agree with Harcourt?
There will have to be changes on the city and the port's plans to agree with the Harcourt vision plan that you've seen today. There's certain elements of that vision plan that Harcourt has shared that could be built within the existing master plan, but there's also a lot of elements that would require some amendments to the existing agreements. And we plan on having those discussions and trying to get those amendments in the next couple of years.
And I will point out that the City Council and the Port Commission have already agreed on the realignment of Granary Avenue over to Laurel, straight across. That was a decision that we had to make because the design of it has got to be started right away, because we have a contractual agreement to get the streets in for their development. So I think it was definitely agreed upon by all, and the city's designers, their engineers can get working on that now, or while they can finish the design now.
And does Harcourt's plan have the same type of green space as the original planning had for the main part of the waterfront?
More, yeah.
The last question I have is, how affordable is it going to be for someone to buy or to live on the waterfront? New construction is expensive. I'm just wondering if it's going to be new people coming into Bellingham that buys these places, or if we're going to be able to afford them as citizens of Bellingham.
Well, I suppose your second question first is will it be new people coming in? I think these residential condominium dwellings will be attractive to even people downsizing. People want more urban type living. So that's the second part. In terms of affordability, well, the market determines the price. So some of our earlier commentators who are real estate brokers will probably be more versed in terms of the price, but the market will be determining the price. But there's no shortage of land, and hopefully we can accommodate as many people as we can physically get in.
Well, I'd like to thank you for all your effort. When this whole began, I had a little doubt about bringing an outside the country contractor in and developer. And from what I see, you're doing a great job. And thank you for participating.
All right, let me jump in on the housing affordability. So in the master plan, there's language that defines how much housing is allowed, both the maximum and the minimum, the timing of the building that housing, and an affordability component. So as the site is built out in the future, over how many years it ends up being, there will be a certain amount of affordable housing included.
Hi, Milan Sličević, President of Commercial Fishing Association of Putnam County. And I have a question. A few months ago, we went to the Stevenson Marina in Canada to check fishermen's dock, where fishermen selling the fish off the dock. And I'd like to know if we're going to have a plan in the front of the granary building, what we talk about, to get that dock where we can tie up the commercial fishing boats and sell fish off the boats.
Yeah, Milan, I'm not sure exactly where that will be located. I like the concept. As you know, we really enjoyed what we saw in Stevenson. We do want to duplicate it or create something like that in Bellingham. Where it's exactly located will have to be a discussion between your association, the commission, and other members of the public. You'll have to get into the port's budget, which is being squeezed, but it is something I think is important and would be great to do at some point.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to know just in front of the granary building, that's what is our goal, you know, if we can accomplish it. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth. Hey, Brian, are you still there? Can you, Brian Gowan.
Brian?
Brian?
He's looking for the door.
He was looking, just shout this out. What is going to be the water depth in front of the granary on Central Street because we're not doing cleanup, there's natural attenuation to the, okay. He's going to take it.
Yeah, it is, that's part of the Walking Waterway Phase 1 work that was just recently completed as well. So the current water depth that you see now, which actually is fairly shallow, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's relatively shallow right in front of the granary, and it is in an area that's part of the natural recovery area, so the sediment that's coming out of the Walking Creek area is naturally capping that. So it's going to continue to shallow out as far as that vicinity. So that location may not be the ideal location for commercial off-boat fishing, but as you mentioned earlier, down further on the old GP wharf, there's significant more depth there. That might be a more ideal location.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name's Tim Shea. I've been in Bellingham for about 10 years. I just opened my second business in town. Started my first one when I was 23. I'm 32 now. Just opened a restaurant in the old Mount Baker Theater building. I just wanted to offer my support for supporting of local businesses and local business owners like myself. I plan on being here my whole life, and I want to see people like me on the waterfront, not just people who have a ton of money. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dwayne Newfield again. I was pleasantly surprised to see so many people talk about the Board Mill Hotel. And so the question I have is, between the commission and Harcourt, how do we get that project expedited? I think it has a lot of vibrancy for the entire project and for this community. So I know there was some kind of delays at one point. Where is it from the commission's standpoint and Harcourt as far as being a priority?
Are you jumping in?
Yeah, I don't want to speak on behalf of the commission, but I don't believe there's been any delays. I think there's been a lot of good conversation, and there needs to be good conversation, and we're going to continue to have those. And Harcourt will develop the projects as the market demands.
Yeah, I guess the answer would be, I don't know that there's an expedited, an opportunity for expedition or expediting the project, because it would be on their timetable.
Sure.
And their second building, the contract that we signed with them, that particular proposal is outside of the original contract we have with them. So their second building, I don't think is even supposed to be required by that contract to be done for 4 or 5 more years. Okay. So what you heard tonight is, it looks to me like they're speeding up the process that folks may have been aware of before, and also looking at 4 buildings now. So I think while the market will push this, some of it I think will be also dragging that market with it.
Okay. I can tell you from my standpoint, I think that hotel is a cornerstone to the whole project. And as I said before, I think it'll draw a lot of overnight folks to our community, and I'm really for it. I voted for it the first time, and I'm glad to hear that they're going to do all these together in some sense. That's kind of new, that they're going to not do one at a time, but have a couple going at the same time. So hopefully that would be sooner rather than later, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just think it's a public space. A lot of times you think of a hotel as where people come into, but a lot of the big cities, you go to the hotel lobbies or where people hang out. It's where you kind of get a sense of the whole thing going. And I know there's a lot of excitement from people here and other people I've talked to. So thanks very much for your guys' work. Appreciate it.
I'd like to clear something up at the meeting I spoke that I wanted to slow things down and get clear. What I wanted was clarity. I wanted what we're having tonight. I wanted a discussion so that we knew where we're going. I never wanted to slow these projects down or stop any of our development. And what I said was taken in a different tone, and people thought that I, as a commissioner, wanted to stop what was going on over here and pick it apart, and that's not where I'm at. I simply wanted to know what we're doing and what we're moving ahead with. And these gentlemen have explained that very clearly, and I have no pushback on what we're doing. I don't want to slow anything down. I would like to expedite also. So just wanted to make that clear.
You have any questions? So I don't see anybody else at the mic. Pat doesn't get here very often. And he's still willing to sit here with us, because he's being polite.
I certainly, if this is the end, I would certainly like to thank both of you gentlemen for coming over here and your excellent presentation. And it's good that the public can see the history of what you've done. We've heard it, but to be able to see it, I applaud you for coming over, and it's great to be working with you.
One brave soul.
Yeah, one quick comment. My name is Jane Bright, and I live in Bellingham, and I share the excitement. I know you've heard that word a lot tonight, but that just seems to be the right word for what's going on, and also the future focus for the city. One thing I'm also very pleased with is that the part of this project includes upgrading the Laurel Street train crossing, and as Ray mentioned, this is an issue for the port and for the city, and as we look at trying to bring more people down to the waterfront, we have the safety issue with the crossings, and we have, particularly with people trying to live there and a retirement community. I think that we need to be very careful about the whole quality of life and the safety elements and the health effects from those train horns. So I look forward to both the port and the city really working on this, because I will tell you that given the health effects from noise, which the EPA and the World Health Organization have all recognized as problematic, particularly for elders, and what it does to the cardiovascular system. I would hope that no retirement community gets built until we get those train horns addressed. But in any event, this is great, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. So, Mayor Lindell, since you're here, I'm going to put you on the spot just for a moment. You've got staff working on the quiet zone issue now?
We've actually invested in, I can't remember, at least 2 already. And yes, we have someone working on it. And then I think some of them we've divided up. I think some of them we found out were on port properties. So we're not working on those anymore. So we'll be working on Boulevard Park.
But you're helping.
But we thank you for the work you did.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, we're fine with that. I'm surprised when you say you don't hear, you don't have them sounding the horns, because we have a federal law that requires them to sound the horns unless we have quiet zone standards by the crossings, and I don't know if you're aware of that or not. So we're still working on the northern ones. I mean, we just finished, I think it was C Street, so that street's open now. I know it's very nice when it happens, but it's very expensive, and in working with Burlington Northern, we can't make them do the work sooner than they want to. So we've also been exploring other ways to pay for it, but they're still the decision maker about when the quiet zone goes in.
I got to say, I was really surprised how convoluted the whole process is, and I don't know how many of you know that the Laurel Street crossing has been closed for years, but it still has cross arms and the lights still come on, so they still honk there, even though it's completely gated off. You'd have to climb the fence to get to it. So with 11 crossings and 4 honks per direction, that adds up during the day.
Well, I live right.
Well, they do 4.
I live right in front of the trestle mic, and they honk in front of my house, and there aren't any crossings.
That's because they know who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's what my husband says. They know where we live.
That is it for today. So if anybody, did you? I'm very sorry. I'm sorry.
Dylan Green. I'm a concerned community member, work with a variety of businesses in downtown Bellingham, and I believe that I represent an age minority in the room. I just want to say that I'm very excited by the progress that's happening by the waterfront. I think it represents an enormous amount of work, effort, and passion that I believe is something that can really be exuded by our own community, and that we should all take this as a lesson that we can continue to catalyze after Harcourt is no longer with us once this project reaches its completion. I also believe that this is an excellent opportunity for our community to retain not only communities from outside of Bellingham, but also the younger demographic, many of which typically find a job and home elsewhere after spending their time here for a brief amount of time for their education. So I thank both the Pats for being here today and for everyone's time. And again, to our community, I think it's time to put our money where our mouth is. I think it's time that we look at this as an example of what we really all have the capabilities of doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan.
We're all going to get to hear firsthand the horns now.
There's 3 crossings right now. So I had one follow-up question for you folks from Harcourt. So we talked about district energy and how to integrate the that concept into what you're doing. While we were talking about that, you mentioned you don't follow the lead style of construction. You have a different mechanism. Can you, since folks are here, could you sort of describe what that high building standard that you folks typically go through where you're working in Europe?
We actually do adhere to the lead. In Titanic Quarter, we did 150,000 square feet office building for Citigroup, and was one of the first LEED Gold buildings done in Ireland at the time. So the LEED program, it's actually not too dissimilar to the BREEAM program in Europe in some respects, but the LEED program we were very, very familiar with, as we have a lot of US companies based in Ireland, as you probably know, they come with a checklist which is LEED orientated, so we do.
And then, so when you're redeveloping an older building, what are some of the processes you have to go through? Because I believe you have to get your building certified as well.
Each building gets energy rated, so you have an assigned certifier or energy rating specialist that would actually rate a building in relation to its energy.
So every single building you work on gets an energy rating.
Yeah, actually in Ireland now, you can't advertise a property without stating its energy rating, what's known as a BER cert.
That's awesome. We're not doing that here yet.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about it. Let's call it, right? All right. Okay. I'd like to thank everybody that came tonight, Pat, Ellie, Commission, everybody else, and especially all the folks that showed up and asked some questions. So with that, we are adjourned.
We have new business.
I don't want new business though.
Do some things
This is still a meeting, so, all right. New business, Mr. Briscoe.
We're at budget time. There's a couple, 3 things that I think we need to try and fit into the budget so we can discuss them. If they're not brought in at this point in time, we can't discuss them. We have a security issue at Squawton Harbor. Our equipment there is so antiquated that it's not even going to be in there. So we need to look at updating our security system at Squawton Harbor. The other thing that has been spoken about is that we may need to add a second guard. So there's 2 guards on duty, not just one for the area covered there. So I'd like to get that on the books to be discussed, whether we can, when we do our arm wrestling, to see what we get in the budget, that'll be there. The other thing is last spring, we spoke about the commercial, as it's kind of named, Commercial Fisherman's Pavilion and Memorial Wall structure adjacent to the web locker next to the harbor. I forget the web locker number. I'd like to make sure that gets put on our list to talk about. The third thing and final thing, I told you I'd make it short. The commercial fishing gear outside storage relocation. We need to talk about that, about the funding needed to move that from where it's at to free up our parking lots for events and such there that are cluttered with gear. And we also have a large area in the corner where gear is stowed that could be moved, and that would make our limited parking much better down there. And currently our staff is moving that stuff around all the time, so it's man hours involved there. So I'd just like to get that into discussion on our budget. That's all I have.
I would tend to agree with Commissioner Briscoe in your third point, that I think that would be really advantageous if we could move that.
I've got 4 points, so which one are you calling?
The third one on the freeing up the
gear.
the boneyard
Gear storage.
Yes.
What do you have for 4?
I've got security cameras, I've got more guards, I've got fish pavilion, and I got commercial fishing stores.
All right, just lump the security together. Okay.
Okay, call security.
You don't have anything new, right?
I do not.
Okay,
So
then.
just real quickly on those four, staff will put together some cost estimates on all four of those, or three of those, however you want to call it, and we will present that information to you so you can discuss it at your October 18th meeting.
All right, and you'll hear from me on the 18th when I see the budget, so, all right. Oh, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.